Hello Wildflowers, and welcome back to Belladonna Cottage, a cosy heritage cottage that has stood for over 100 years in a sleepy Australian town on the edge of a vast wilderness. Here, dark magic blooms in the garden and church bells toll in the distance on Sundays. It is most certainly a witch's cottage, a green and good witch of course, and you know it when the wind whistles under the midnight black door as it blows down from the cemetery on the hill, past farmyards and orchards, and into the deep dark woods beyond. As winter's chill begins to fade, I've spent the past few weeks transforming my rather ordinary bathroom into a dark naturalist dream, a botanical herbarium-inspired shower room befitting of a green goddess with a veritable apothecary of lotions and potions and oils. The inspiration for this extreme makeover, of course, was the colour of the tangled woods and rainforests I love so much to wander in as the sun fades each evening, the place I go so often in search of wildflowers and native herbs for my craft. I wanted to feel immersed in the colours of the forest in my very own bathroom, the rich emeralds, deep olives and charcoal blacks that speak to my wild fairy heart. And so once I'd gathered some ideas and chosen the perfect shade of green for this dark and moody bathroom makeover, this shade is called Wild Thing, it was time to enlist the help of my magical handyman, the amazing Mr. Rose, pop on my trusty overalls and get to it. You may remember a year ago, I transformed my bedroom into a lush and romantic boudoir of dusty rose and plum. It really felt like my dream of a moody Victorian witch's cottage was finally coming to life. But beyond that, a plain white ensuite with ordinary stainless steel fixtures and boring white tiles had been bothering my artistic eye and taunting me for months and months. The cabinetry left a lot to be desired, and the plain white drawers were not very fun or inspiring. It seemed as though the previous owner was set on modernising a gorgeous historic home, and I'm not having any of that, Wildflowers. But my biggest complaint was that the height of this ugly, hospital-esque mirror forced me to stand on tippy toes just to brush my hair. It was the first thing to go. You know, the thing with renovating is, it sometimes feels like a woolen jumper. If you pull at one loose string, the whole thing might start to unravel. What starts out as a "how hard can it be" micro task, like removing a mirror, often snowballs into a major macro task. And then at some point, you're just eating Chinese takeaway on the bathroom floor, covered in paint shavings and plaster, asking your husband in all seriousness, "Shall we just sell this one and buy a new house?" We made a bit of a mess removing the mirror, but it was relatively easy to fix, and the prospect of a brand new one I could actually see my reflection in gave me the motivation to keep going. Indeed, as we progressed, every solution came with a new problem to solve, as we realised where timber had warped and screws were stripped, and how incredibly not a single thing about the previous owner's work on this space was actually level or uniform in size. That being said, we had so much fun figuring out how to pull off this extreme makeover, and I dare say that this old cottage hasn't had so much hysterical laughter echoing through her hallways in decades. As with other rooms we've tackled, we had to work around updates to the house made in the 70s and later on, and be content to leave some of the more modern touches in place, so as not to blow out our budget completely, or be here till Christmas. But that's all part of the challenge of restoring an old house, one that has seen so many changes over the decades. As we worked away, I couldn't help wondering what gorgeous 1920s fixtures and fittings, windows and doors might have existed here once upon a time when Belladonna Cottage was in her glorious blush of youth. The glitz and glamour of the jazz era at the tail end of the Art Nouveau movement would have suited her so perfectly, with her original high ceilings and panelling and sash windows. She would have stood here so proud and beautiful. I think she would approve of this colour we've chosen, and the antique brass look of the new mirror, drawer pulls and tap. Certainly her era was all about elegant lines, botanical prints and ornate touches, and we've tried our best to recapture the style of this in the choices we made. It's not unusual to find a witch chatting away to her own enchanted house, and in the past few weeks I've found myself reassuring her, "Don't worry, old girl, we'll bring you back to life." And just like that, the hard work was done. The perfect place to search for some unique decor to inject a little charm and character into the bathroom was the local antique store and vintage emporium. Here I scanned the shelves for oddities and things of old that caught my eye. And it almost felt like I was channeling the spirit of the house herself, finding myself drawn to things I would otherwise have overlooked. Things that a vintage lady like Belladonna would have loved, like an assortment of vintage toffee and pretzel tins from the 1920s with their ornate gold and green lettering and beautiful Art Nouveau inspired illustrations. I'm actually going to put my makeup in one of these tins, and it is the perfect place to store all those bits and bobs. Whilst Noah slept peacefully in the bedroom, I continued decorating with hanging glass vases for water plants, artworks old and new featuring flora and fauna, fluffy velvety towels adorned with a botanical print, candles and lotions, amber glass bottles filled with greenery from the forest, and so on. In the end, the decor was giving Gustav Klimt vibes, which were all the rage at the turn of the last century, and exactly what a roaring 20s maven and fashionista like Belladonna would have coveted. See, I knew my art history degree would come in handy one day, Dad. Now, I did promise a dark naturalist herbarium inspired bathroom at the start of this video, and I hope you didn't think I'd forget all those luscious indoor plants that any green witch absolutely needs to complete a room. After all, I did make sure that Mr. Rose installed another shelf entirely devoted to plants. This gave me an excuse to get out into the garden for a spell and enjoy my new potting station, transferring some lovely ivy, succulents and ferns into an assortment of decorative pots and making a wonderful mess with my hands in the soil. I sure hope these little plant babies will be happy in their new home, and I know they are going to add the perfect finishing touch of leafy living magic to the bathroom. Don't forget to note down what you planted in your garden journals, Wildflowers, because I can't tell you how many times I've planted something thinking, yeah, I'll remember what I planted. And no, without my garden journal, I don't know what is where. Okay, so maybe this shelf isn't just for plants. I think this looks rather cute here and adds to the jungle look. Well, that's the last plant. I think it's time for the final reveal, don't you? Finally, I can apply my makeup and style my hair without standing on tippy toes, and it feels like this is a bathroom more suited to a forest fairy or a green witch or just a little wild thing like me. By drenching it in rich forest and emerald green, moody black and antique gold, I think I've captured that dark naturalist botanical aesthetic I was going for, with a nod to the history of the home, with hints of Art Deco and Art Nouveau. I never would have thought that pops of bright yellow would have worked so perfectly here, or that I would take inspiration from the art and design of the jazz era at all. But like I said, it really felt like Belladonna Cottage was speaking to me, gently whispering little ideas and hints and nudging me towards design choices that she herself would have loved, way back in the roaring 20s. And it feels as though I've invited the garden inside the space too, with all the potted plants and of course the colour palette. So when I'm showering, it's rather like I'm inside a terrarium, and I love that. I so hope you enjoyed this episode, and I thank you for your patience as this one inevitably took way longer to complete than I had planned. Until next time, beautiful wildflowers, may you be inspired to make art of your life and walk on the wild side whenever the mood strikes. Merry meet and merry meet again, dear friends, and a blessed turn of the wheel to all.